Will the return of a key interior offensive lineman help the New England Patriots in their quest to earn an upset victory over the 49ers on Sunday? Stick around. You're about to be locked in to the Locked On Patriots podcast.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all of you Foxborough faithful, and thank you once again for making Locked On Patriots a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage. I'm your host, Mike Debate, and I cover your New England Patriots for Patriots Country of Athlon Sports. So reach out to me and let me know what's on your mind on X at MDABATENFL. While you're out there showing social media love to Locked On Patriots, follow our X account as well at LO_Patriots. And Pats fans, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And Pats fans, the final injury report for your New England Patriots is out and published this Sunday over the San Francisco 49ers, 4:15 p.m. Eastern kickoff from Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about the potential return of interior offensive lineman Sidy Sow. I'm going to talk a little bit about Vederian Lowe, who is out for this Sunday's game. Even going to delve into Caedan Wallace and whether or not the rookie may be able to give it a go after suffering an injury in last week's loss to the Jets. Also going to get an update on the injury to linebacker Ja'Whaun Bentley, and maybe even a little update on the conditions of both defensive lineman Christian Barmore as well as wide receiver Kendrick Bourne. The only man that can provide the information that we need is a very good friend of the program. He is a doctor of physical therapy, as well as being the publisher of bangedupbills.com, and also handles injury analysis for all of the AFC East. My good friend, Dr. Kyle Trimble, joins me today. Kyle, thank you for joining me here. Welcome back to Locked On Patriots.
Mike, thanks for having me back on. It's always great to talk with you.
Absolutely. And it's always great to talk with you, too, to gain your, as I like to say, wisdom and counsel. But more so than that, Kyle, your expertise in this area. And where else would we start? The Patriots' banged-up offensive line. Kyle, I know up in Buffalo, things are going great for the Bills right now. But down here in New England, not so much. The New England Patriots at 1-2. Jacoby Brissett running for his life on nearly every drop back, and a big part of that has been problems along the offensive line. Now, some of that is due to inexperience and poor play, but if we're being fair, a lot of it is due to injuries at key positions, especially on the left-hand side. Patriots getting a bit of decent news this week regarding left guard Sidy Sow, who missed the first 3 weeks of the season because of an ankle injury. According to head coach Gerard Mayo, Kyle, he is nearing a return to the football field. In fact, the team is pretty optimistic that he may make that return this Sunday against the 49ers. He suffered the injury in the preseason game against the Washington Commanders. Kyle, knowing what you know about this injury, how he suffered it, typical recovery time, what can the Patriots expect out of Sidy Sow this weekend if, in fact, he suits up?
So to recap, like you said, that he did suffer it against Washington. It was a routine play. He was getting pushed backwards, and it was late in the second quarter when this happened, I believe. And he was getting pushed backwards, and it looked like he jammed his right ankle. The foot was everted or turned out a little bit. There was a possibility of this being maybe a high ankle sprain, because there would be the position of that where the foot gets jammed up and then outward, which stretches the syndesmosis of the ankle and puts pressure on that lateral malleolus or the bottom of the fibula. There's a possibility of that. Given the timeline, and we see him miss about a month there, it could be in line with what it is. I wasn't necessarily confident when I saw it, like, oh, that's a high ankle sprain for sure. There could be the possibility of a bone bruise in there as well, because, I mean, that's something jamming, especially being as big as he is. That could be in play too. He did know at the time when he did suffer the injury, he thought he popped his Achilles. Thankfully, he didn't, because he would be out for the whole year, and it'd be a big thing for him to come back there. So it's either high ankle sprain, potentially bone bruise based off how he's jamming it up. There might be some other stuff in play, but I didn't have the best angle that I saw on that there. So either way, having a month off to recover and rehab from that would be ample time to at least get up and closer to 100% there. given the Patriots rebuilding aspect of their roster, I don't blame them for saying, hey, let's get one of our better offensive linemen the time he needs to get back in play rather than have him try to run through this injury and be limited all season there. So I don't know if the injury necessarily prevented him from missing this amount of time, or whether they're being proactive and say, hey, let's get this thing the ample time it needs to get fully healthy. And then that way you're good to go and keep some continuity on the offensive line there. So the timeline, let's say, for example, high ankle can be anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. Even mild ones maybe short up a little bit. Offensive linemen can play through them, but every time you post up on that leg and you push and you drive, it just continues to stress that syndesmosis that keeps the tibia and fibula together over the talus of the ankle. So every time you stress it, just pain and just weakness, and just it's not fun for a player to be doing that. And nomad tape or bracing can really get that thing healed back up or stabilize it until it gives it time. So we might hear some more information later on in the season, but I'm expecting him to be closer to 100% if he does play in week 4.
Yeah, very good piece of information. And Sidy was a participant in practice all week long, and that started the chatter about the possibility of him being able to come back. Gerard Mayo, again, earlier this week, saying he was looking forward to seeing him in the lineup. Those types of things, pieces of information you usually don't get from a Patriots head coach regarding the health of one of their players, especially heading into the week, was refreshing because it gave, I think, a lot of optimism for Sidy to come back, because their replacement left guard, Michael Jordan, who signed with the team just a couple of weeks ago from the practice squad, he's out for this game as well. So New England right now kind of down to their second/third option at the position, because as we all know, and we talked about him quite often in the offseason, Kyle, Cole Strange is also out indefinitely, and we're still awaiting his return. So Cole was originally supposed to be the starting left guard. Sidy was the starting right guard. They move him over to the left. He gets injured. And then all of a sudden, they're down to Jordan for the last couple of games. And now with Jordan out, Sidy looks like he's coming back in to help shore up the interior of that offensive line. And that's good news for Jacoby Brissett, and especially the Patriots' run game, who's so predicated on that strong front to be able to run and facilitate the run. Having Sidy in the lineup is definitely good news for those guys to get the run game going for the Patriots. But as we all know, it's not just about the interior. It's really about the tackles that have been performing poorly this year for New England. And Vederian Lowe, a knee injury is going to keep Vederian sidelined for back-to-back contests. And again, he may not be the second coming of Matt Light here at the tackle position, but he is maybe the Patriots' most experienced, maybe their safest option at the position. Based on what you know about Vederian's injury, how long do you think he may be on the shelf, and what could the Patriots expect from him long term?
So Lowe suffered what appeared to be a right knee injury on like the last offensive series before overtime against Seattle. I believe it was in week 2. He was getting pushed backwards, and he had a body kind of come out of nowhere. And I think this is also when I can't remember if Jacoby Brissett did get taken out on this play there too, but somebody kind of not necessarily rolled up into Lowe's right ankle knee, but he got hit from behind, and that seemed to bring him down. And there wasn't any indication that he had suffered an injury until you kind of saw some reports later on that he was on the sideline talking to training staff, and then his backup, Caedan Wallace. Yeah.
Wallace, yeah.
Yes. So Caedan Wallace was in for overtime, and then unfortunately they ended up losing. So by video, the first thing I'm thinking is MCL sprain. And the key thing with MCL sprains is that's where you get the valgus force that stresses the inside portion of the knee, the MCL, and that's a very, very, very common injury you see in football players. Sometimes you need to just be hit, and just how the knee is bent, how much tension is through that ligament. Sometimes it doesn't even have to look like a really severe hit to have a pretty moderate or even severe injury to that area. So the fact that if it is an MCL, knowing that he has to be working at the edge, especially pushing off that right leg, keeping if he's playing left tackle, it would make sense why they want to slow him in getting back, because you have to have so much pushing off. And if you don't have a strong anchor to keep the guy outside, you're going to be beat like a drum, and defensive ends are going to be looking like all pros against anybody with that type of injury. So that's my theory, at least on that. And so if he does return soon, he'll probably have a hinge brace on the area and maybe move a little gingerly. But, MCL sprains can be anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, for, normal population. You're probably looking at 2, maybe 3 games for a guy like Lowe. But keep in mind, he was also coming off a abdominal oblique injury suffered, I believe it was the final preseason game. So he hasn't been healthy in the better part of a month. And so they might just say, let's shut you down, get you right, because we're burning through guys left and right, and we can't get you back out there limping around because, practice squad, free agent guys on the street. That's not a great look to, for Drake May eventually want to step behind there, and you're getting Jacoby Brissett just beat to snot.
Yeah, without any question. I mean, Jacoby right now is being pressured on greater than 40% of his dropbacks. 44.8 right now is the estimated percentage. In a couple of games and in a couple of circumstances, that mark has eclipsed the 50% mark. And that is a daunting task for any quarterback in any way, shape, and form. Jacoby Brissett has been under a lot of pressure. There's no question about it, both literally and figuratively, Kyle. So any relief he can get will be welcome news. But thank you for the update on Vederian Lowe and what Patriots can expect there, because right now, again, he is probably your best option at the position unless the Patriots make another move here. He's probably the best bet right now and probably will be the guy protecting the blind side of Drake May when and if he does take the reins of this team in short order. You mentioned Caedan Wallace earlier, Kyle, and Caedan actually was the starting left guard against the New York Jets last Thursday. He missed the final 14 snaps due to a knee injury that he suffered. Looked like Jets defensive lineman Leonard Taylor appeared to have stepped on the back of his leg. That caused the knee injury, and he's been banged up a little bit. Questionable for this game against the 49ers this weekend. Obviously, not the ideal situation for Caedan, but what can you tell us about his injury? From what you've seen, does it look like he is more or less likely to suit up? Because a lot of people are thinking that the newly signed Demontre Jacobs, who was claimed off of waivers, may end up being the Patriots' fourth starting left tackle in as many games.
That would be not good if that's the case there. 4 guys in 4 games like that there. Like you mentioned, he was stepped on. ESPN's Mike Rice, he's been starting to put out some injury videos of the All-22. So I really appreciated him putting that stuff out there because sometimes that makes my job easier. I even thanked him. But if you're looking for some injury, nuggets, check out Mike's page on X there because he is, putting some stuff out there. Then I can kind of go from there. But I'm actually looking at the video right now as we're talking. And, like you said, Leonard Taylor does step on his leg, but it doesn't seem like there's much of anything. He seems like he almost steps on the outside portion of his ankle, and then he starts to go down. And so on his right side, it's almost like he gets stepped on, and then he like hops and then comes down there. So, my initial thing is, do you have an MCL? Because he was pushed over and trying to push off the right side, and maybe just that extra force from the outside led to an MCL sprain. He was pushing out. I don't really see a huge mechanism for injury for a meniscus, but when you guys got a lot of pressure down through there, the knees pivoted, he could have tweaked something in there. I want to lean toward MCL, which would give a better outcome and a return timeline. But, this only happened, a week and a half ago. So even in any injury in there, as big as the guy that is going to take some time to get back there. So this one I'd want a little more information on before I made a definitive thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was once again, 2-3 week timeline like we just talked about with Lowe, just needing that time to kind of get back up to the speed of things and make sure that the knee is going to hold up there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jacobs already getting the praises sung by his coaches, Alex Van Pelt, Gerard Mayo, had good things to say about Demontre this week. Kind of makes you realize that it's more likely than not that he probably will be getting the start here, especially with what you're telling us about Caedan Wallace's injury. And folks, again, keep a sharp eye on the actives and inactive list that comes out prior to the game on Sunday. That'll be telltale. Saturday, sometimes you see these names pop up on lists, and all of a sudden they're downgraded from questionable to out. It'll be interesting to see if that is indeed the case with Caedan Wallace this time around. Right now, as of the time we're recording this, he is still questionable. So, Kyle, thank you. We appreciate all of the information when it comes to the O-line, and the New England Patriots are going to need that O-line at top strength, or at least as close as they can get to it, to help fend off what's going to be a formidable and hungry San Francisco 49ers defensive front. But the New England Patriots defense, Kyle, is also without one of their best players. Ja'Whaun Bentley suffering a torn pectoral. He's out for the year, now officially on injured reserve. What can the Patriots expect from Ja'Whaun's recovery? Kyle is going to walk us through that and tell us what to expect from Ja'Whaun upon his return when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast continues, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 per month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Patriots fans, thank you once again for joining us here today on Locked On Patriots. And if you've made Locked On Patriots your first listen today, a tip of the cap and a big thank you to all of you out there who do so, especially all of you everydayers who continue to make Locked On Patriots possible. If you have made us your first listen, I encourage you to make your second listen, our good friends over at the all-new Locked On NFL podcast. All the big storylines all across the shield, brought to you by a network of amazing analysts we have, and you can find only here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And here today to help break down the injury history, the very health of your team, your favorite team in Foxborough, is our resident expert, Dr. Kyle Trimble, publisher of Banged Up Bills, and of course, doctor of physical therapy. And Kyle, in the previous segment, we talked a lot about the Patriots' banged up offensive line, but arguably the biggest injury that the Patriots have sustained so far in season is the torn pectoral suffered by team captain Ja'Whaun Bentley. Just as a recap, folks, Ja'Whaun appeared to suffer the injury on a run play with 3 minutes and 35 seconds remaining in the first quarter of the Patriots' 23-20 loss to the Seattle Seahawks a couple of weeks ago. Stayed in for one more play before exiting the game. And of course, now it has been confirmed the torn pectoral will keep him from the field. Kyle, I've discussed several times here on Locked On Patriots about the injury to Ja'Whaun Bentley and exactly how much of a detriment it was. Patriots fans are clamoring for knowledge on when they can expect Ja'Whaun to return, if they should expect Ja'Whaun to return. Based on this type of injury, based on what you know from how he suffered it, typical recovery time, what is Ja'Whaun right now looking at in terms of a recovery?
It's a pretty uncomplicated recovery, which is nice. The Bills have suffered several of these before and have had great success getting these guys back in time. Just a quick recap. Once again, I mentioned Mike Rice of ESPN. He had put the play up on his X page, and this was great to see how the injury happens. And what happened was he engaged with Seattle right guard Anthony Bradford. Bradford wrestled him down with the left arm, and then Bentley came up and started moving his shoulder around. Unfortunately, the arm was probably placed in the abduction and external rotation and just forced back suddenly. And that's usually a classic mechanism for a pectoral tear. And the fact that they had to do injury reserve and get surgery for this is because the muscle tore at the tendon, which connects to the bone. Sometimes if you get a pectoral strain where more of the tear is in the muscle belly, you don't necessarily have to miss as extended amount of time there. So I know that the wording was interesting. They said it was season ending. Now, there could be more damage than we know of, and he might truly be out all season. Given the struggle with the Patriots this year, unfortunately, maybe they were hedging their bets to, hey, he's going to be out for the entire year. Don't expect him back. But we see guys routinely come back from a pectoral tear with surgery in 3 months. Just to give a nice recap with the Bills, they had that with Daquan Jones last year. He suffered that in week 5 against the Jaguars and returned like week 18 for the Bills playoff push. And then several years before that, offensive guard and tackle John Feliciano suffered that like during the second preseason practice, and then came back like midway through the season. So if Bentley can return, he'd probably be looking at a mid-December, maybe late December return, based off of how the rehab is going. Of course, you have to factor in possible setbacks, or maybe there's more damage than we had thought there. So I wouldn't count your, chickens before they hatch and say, hey, he's going to be gone for the year. But when he does come back, he'll have to wear a shoulder harness. There will be some growing pains getting him back up to speed because he'll have missed 3 months of football, but it's not impossible for him to return. It's just a matter of just letting the tissue heal up and make sure that he can do everything he needs to. And that would be a great, I think, especially if the Patriots can stay competitive and make a late season playoff push.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That was going to be my follow-up to you, is that stranger things have happened. If the Patriots can string together a few decent wins and remain competitive, is there a chance that Ja'Whaun Bentley may be able to come back and play this season? And it sounds like there is an option. There is a chance that he might be able to do it, especially if that recovery time holds up. And Ja'Whaun is one of the stronger guys on the team. Hopefully that strength translates to recovery and translates to a strong recovery for him. If that is indeed the case, it's nice to know that he could end up being back out on the field sooner rather than later. Typically, when you see these types of injuries, Kyle, and you've mentioned that the Bills have had a few of them and players have come back, when they do come back on the field, because Ja'Whaun is such a key cog in the Patriots' run defense and also helping to shore up the middle part of that defense to allow the pass rush to be able to get to work, is there any chance he'll be limited in his abilities when he comes back? Or is this a situation where once he's rehabbed, once he's ready to go, you can expect the Ja'Whaun Bentley of old?
Yes and no. I mean, from a situational football standpoint, positioning, he'll be the Ja'Whaun Bentley of old because he still has the mental reps and everything else that goes with that.
Mm-hmm.
But physically, there is going to be some restrictions. Like he's not going to have the full range of motion of his shoulder, not because that the rehab won't have done well. It's just because he'll be wearing shoulder harness that prevents him from maybe getting that out. That guy that coming outside and he wants to get some fingertips on him or something. So I'll have to work on squaring up guys a little more in front of him, make sure he has textbook tackling and just better technique and whatnot. There might be some slight deficits in terms of wrapping up the tackle because even though they've sewn the tendon back to the bone and get it all reattached and strengthened back up, there's still that time frame that he needs to fully get back up to strength. I mean, you're talking about wrapping up 250, 300-pound guys trying to tackle them and going full speed there. So like he might notice he's not 100%, but you and me and everybody else might say, okay, he looks pretty good out there, but there might be some small things that either you kind of see occasional play, but the fact that he's back out there would be a huge boost. I mean, from a morale standpoint, even just a talent standpoint, if he does get back out there. So yeah, some deficits, but not enough where it wouldn't be safe for him to play.
Yeah, very, very good point. And again, it points all to the importance of Ja'Whaun Bentley to this team. And it goes beyond what he does on the field, which is extremely important. But Ja'Whaun is one of the best communicators in that locker room, on that field. And he's the guy that typically wears the green dot each and every Sunday. He's directing traffic. He's letting everyone know where they need to be. And he's calling the plays. So if that is the case where they can bring him back and get him meaningful reps, even if the Patriots are not competitive, even from a standpoint of building this team until next year, a lot of that defense is under contract. So these guys are going to be together for a little while. You want to establish continuity, and it's nice to know that if he's healthy enough to do so, that is an option without re-injuring that or making it worse by coming back a little bit too quickly. So good news on Ja'Whaun Bentley, folks, for the long term. Unfortunately, he won't be out there anytime soon, but we all continue to wish Ja'Whaun the very best in his efforts to earn his way back on the football field, maybe in 2024, but definitely in 2025. And speaking of returns, Kyle, here on Locked On Patriots, we love to end on a high note, and that's exactly what we're going to do, folks. In just a moment, a couple of fan favorites may be eligible to come off their various injury lists after the Week 4 matchup with the San Francisco 49ers. Is it realistic that the Patriots could be suiting up Kendrick Bourne or Christian Barmore? Stay tuned. Our resident expert's going to weigh in on both subjects in just a moment when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast wraps up right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. So if you're feeling pretty good about the chances of your favorite New England sports team, who just happens to be an underdog in week 4 against the favorites in the Bay Area, you can test your intuition and make the most of it with FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Patriots fans, thank you once again for joining us here today on Locked On Patriots. Joining me is Dr. Kyle Trimble, editor and publisher of BangedUpBills.com, as well as being a doctor of physical therapy and an AFC East injury expert. And Kyle, we've talked about some of the more high-profile injuries to the Patriots, especially along the offensive line. Unfortunately, the pectoral injury to Ja'Whaun Bentley will keep him on the shelf. Most seem to think it will sideline him for the year, but you've outlined a scenario that could envision him suiting up once again this year, perhaps. Of course, these are all hypotheticals, folks, depending on how he rehabs and, of course, what the Patriots' record will be. But week 4 is always a linchpin for a lot of these injury lists because players all of a sudden who began the season on an injury list or with an injury designation are all of a sudden eligible to come off. There are 2 players that are very near and dear to the hearts of Patriots Nation that do have that eligibility at the end of this week, once the final buzzer sounds in week 4 in their matchup with the San Francisco 49ers. Let's start with one that I believe may be a little bit more of a long shot, but I think would probably give the greatest smile to all of Patriots Nation, and that's Christian Barmore. Our hearts were collectively with Christian when news came out that he was suffering from blood clots. He would be out indefinitely. And he's been in and around the Patriots lately. Of course, he's been participating in putting together some humorous videos, various things that he's been doing to keep his morale up and also keep him around the players and keep their morale up as a team. Christian is one of the most well-liked, one of the most well-respected guys in that locker room. And ironically, Kyle, he's eligible to come off of the non-football injury list after the Patriots' Week 4 game against the 49ers. So whether that will happen remains to be seen. That's going to be dependent on the medical professional's clearance. But based on what you know from blood clots, from recovery, Christian's size, his injury history, things of that nature, is there any chance that we may see Christian Barmore on a football field this year for the New England Patriots?
It's possible. The fact that they put him on non-football injury, that does allow them to not have to pay him, which I'm sure they are paying him, but that allows them to kind of keep everything open and just have the ability to return at some point. Just to quickly recap, they did discover blood clots around the first week of training camp. July 28th was when they made their statement because he had been missing some time, but there really wasn't a clear designation of what was going on. So they said that he was going to be put out indefinitely, and it really just kind of comes down to what's causing blood clots. On average, athletes miss about 6 months while they're dealing with the blood clots and trying to get blood thinners and figure out basically what the underlying cause is, make sure that they're not going to have any reoccurrence of the blood clots when they do come off the blood thinners, and then they get back up to play and conditioning and whatnot. So it's, I would think if they were talking about like it coming off after week 4, there'd be a little more chatter, say, hey, he's moving in the right direction, but we really haven't heard anything. So I think they know what's causing the blood clots by now. It's just a matter of how are they treating it, and then what the prognosis is like there. Just to several players, those is not an exhaustive list by any means, who have had blood clots. Some have returned, some not. Billy Price, he was with the Bengals for a while. I think he retired because he had blood clot. I think last year. Wide receiver Marquise Goodwin, he missed minimal time, though. I remember when he was with the Browns. David Andrews, the Patriots, he missed some time. Kenneth Walker of Seattle, he missed some time in college. Max Mitchell, he missed the end of the 2022 season, I believe it was. He had a genetic issue, I remember, which led to him having some blood clots. And then Trey Smith, I believe, of Kansas City. So different guys have had different blood clots for different reasons. This happens when sometimes you get an injury and like a deep bruise, the area, heart contusion, and sometimes the clotting factors in your body kind of just all clump together in one of those deeper veins. And, it's not really a big problem until you're like, hey, I'm getting kind of sore in this area and it's not going away. And you think it's a pulled muscle, or you get like a sharp pain and then something's not right. or sometimes they find the clot more up in one of the, the lungs, or, God forbid, the heart or brain. But I would think if they got up to the lungs, they can still treat it, but heart or brain, then you're talking about stroke. And that's a really big problem. So it sounds like he had it either more in his lungs, where he's maybe getting some shortness of breath and they found it, or even if they found it in his legs, where they say, hey, let's get you in blood thinners if they need to break the clot, but and deal with that. So we don't know what's causing it, if it's a genetic thing, if it was some type of injury. Being overweight is a huge thing with that. We don't know if he is diabetic, but I mean, given the size of some of these guys, I wouldn't be surprised if they are dealing with some of that. I think most of those guys are pretty public about that. Not everybody, though. That's their personal preference. So I think once they know what's causing it and then how his body's responding, it's just going to come down to when they know they can say, hey, you can return to practice. You're not going to have the risk of suffering any new blood clots, or if you do have a blood clot we don't know about, it's going to dislodge and it's going to go up to your brain and kill you. So they're doing the due diligence. I know Mass General is a really great place for cardiology in general. So I think we'll start hearing some more chatter, but it's not impossible. I think he'll come back, because other guys have shown they can do that and still play at a very high level.
Very, very good information. And again, I think a lot of what Patriots Nation is looking at when it comes to Christian is worrying about his long-term health, his immediate health, obviously, but his long-term health as well. And knowing the severity and the seriousness of what this could mean. Again, it depends on what's causing it. It depends on his history. It depends on his genetic makeup. But obviously, the Patriots are going to err on the side of caution. They caught this early enough to be able to treat it. Hopefully, looks like that's the case. So if that is indeed the case, then I think the Patriots will continue their approach with temperance, and that is definitely the just cause. So, folks, if you're expecting to see Christian Barmore back out on the field, probably too early to tell right now, but technically he is eligible after this week. So always worth keeping an eye on, and always worth keeping an ear to the ground to listen to what the New England Patriots are doing with Christian. But the fact that he is in the building, continuing to raise the morale of those around him and himself, is always a good sign. And of course, there is another player that is eligible to perhaps start practice after this week's matchup with the San Francisco 49ers has concluded, and that's wide receiver Kendrick Bourne. Now, Kendrick has been sidelined since tearing his ACL in week 8 of last season. Seems like it's been an elongated recovery time for Kendrick. A lot of people thought he may be back during training camp, during preseason, definitely for the regular season. That did not happen. He started the season on the PUP list, Kyle, but he is eligible to return to practice when week 4 concludes. Based on the type of ACL injury that Kendrick had, your previous knowledge, how likely is it that we'll see Kendrick sooner rather than later?
I would think very soon. I was kind of surprised when they did start him on regular season PUP to begin with, because he tore in week 8. That was at the end of October. Usually they wait 2-3 weeks for the repair, because they want to make sure the range of motion is full in there. They cut down any swelling and kind of get the body prepared, because after an injury like that, the whole body wants to shut down. Not the whole body, but like the knee and the quads and all the surrounding musculature. So if they get that stronger, they get the range of motion going, then that way they get better recovery. And I know, for example, if he went out to, I mispronounced this guy's name, but Dr. Ella Trache out in Los Angeles, he's been the go-to guy for ACLs and shoulders and whatnot. He's very, very particular about range of motion. Like, if you don't have a certain range of motion by the time, he wants to do surgery, he delays it until you get that range of motion and get the rehab done. So whether there's delays because of that or other reasons, but they've had this method to make sure that the rehab goes well, and that surgery goes well. So once again, let's say he had the surgery in mid-November, and then, he's looking at 10 months to return back in training camp. And I thought they would have got him up and going. There's certainly a possibility he could have had a setback at some point, maybe some, persistent swelling. There might have been additional damage in there that we didn't see. I mean, the MCL is a commonly injured ligament that we talked about earlier with some of the offensive linemen. That's not really a big issue, but if he had meniscus in there, some of the meniscal stuff really shouldn't impact the MCL or some of the ACL, but sometimes just the multiple damage in there, or if there's chondral bone defects due to just how the knee was injured, sometimes that delays recovery. And that's something they're not going to necessarily tell us, because that's getting into the minutia of the injury. So for whatever reason, they did stop him. I'd be really confused if they don't activate him after week 4 and get him up and going. Do I expect him playing week 5? Probably not, just because I think you need to get acclimated with the offense and get going. So maybe you're looking at week 6 for him to return. He just needs to get, actually practicing, which is a downside of the pup, is that you can't practice with the team, but you can be around for rehabbing. So the fact that he wasn't ready to go week 1, week 2 is surprising, but there's always something we don't know with this stuff, and hopefully you can get back up and, go week 6, maybe week 7.
Yeah, that's good news for the New England Patriots, obviously, who need as much help in the pass catching department as possible. Kendrick, at the time that he left the game last year, was the Patriots' most productive receiver. So he's definitely capable of winning his matchups all over the field. And it's good to know that with his rehab now looking like it's behind him, the best is yet to come when it comes to Kendrick Bourne, and the Patriots will need all the help they can get on the field offensively. Kyle, what can we say? Thank you so much for dropping by and lending your expertise in this area, especially when it comes to the Patriots' offensive line, the immediate impact it will have on this team this weekend, but most importantly, the long-term health of 3 fan favorites here in New England: Ja'Whaun Bentley, Christian Barmore, and of course, Kendrick Bourne. Before I let you go today, Kyle, please let everyone know where they can reach out to you, where they can absorb your amazing work, both written and verbally, and in front of the camera on podcasts just like this one. And of course, what they can look forward to in terms of injury coverage within the coming weeks.
So once again, Mike, thanks for having me on tonight. I do want to add one additional thing. Tracking, even though I'm a Bills fan, tracking all the AFC East stuff, I have a much greater appreciation for some of the players that that I cover, at least watching their injuries and whatnot. So guys like Barmore, Bentley, David Andrews, other guys, like, I appreciate the work that they put into giving the best for their teams each and every week. And so when you do see the guys go down with injuries like that, like, it's not even like that's the enemy. It's like, well, these guys are putting a lot of work in. They're taking care of their families. They're living out their dreams. So like, I feel for them, even though I'm a Bills fan, because it's still a human thing and it's an injury. So, I certainly want the best for them, regardless of your team affiliation. But you can find all my work at bangedupbills.com. I do an AFC East injury preview that comes out, every Friday or Saturday, depending on, how the schedule comes out with Thursday games, Mondays, and whatnot there. So, if you want to find out socially where you can find me at, I'm on X now, Facebook, Reddit, and then Instagram at Banged Up Bills. If you have any Patriots questions, feel free to reach out. I don't have as much time to dig into Patriots film as much as I want to, because family, job, the whole 9 yards. But if there is something specifically looking for, or you want additional information, I will gladly look it up, because at the end of the day, it's an injury that's going to affect your favorite football team, and people want this information, and I at least want to give them the best information possible.
Absolutely. And Kyle is among the best in the business, folks. He's always our go-to resident when it comes to these matters. And we look forward to having him back here on Locked On Patriots to give an injury update. Hopefully it's just to give an update on the players that we've discussed, and there's no further Patriots injuries, but you and I both know that's not how the NFL season works. It's bound to happen. And if it does, Kyle is always there to provide great coverage, not just for the Patriots, folks, but always, of course, for the Bills and the Dolphins and the Jets, all the great work that he does across the AFC East. Check that out. You will not be disappointed. And don't forget, folks, we are not done yet, because there is still a preview left before kickoff on Sunday at 4:15, when your New England Patriots take on the San Francisco 49ers in their quest to return to 500 football. In the meantime, I'm Mike DeBate, and from the bottom of my heart, I thank you all for making us a part of your New England Patriots coverage today. A tip of the cap and a big thanks to my good friend Kyle Trimble for his expertise today. And of course, don't forget to stay locked into Locked On Patriots for the very latest on your New England Patriots. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow when Locked On Patriots gets you ready for kickoff in Week 4 of the 2024 NFL season.